Hello, welcome to Talking the Secret Doctrine. My name is Dr. Don Franklin Shepherd, and tonight we will be exploring the first three slokas in the fourth stanza in the first volume, starting on page 86 in the Secret Doctrine, published by Theosophical University Press, verbatim edition, located out at Pasadena, California. So let us read the first sloka directly. She writes, "Listen, ye sons of the earth, to your instructors, the sons of the fire." So we need to understand this concept for sons of the fire. In her commentary on that page, H.P. Blavatsky says that it is very difficult. But there's a very telling passage for us up at the top of page 87. Let me read that. The Agnishvata, the Kumara, the seven mystic sages are solar deities, though the former are Petri, and these are the fashioners of the inner man. So we have two categories here of fashioners of the inner man that H.P. Blavatsky lays out on page 87. There's the Kumara. Now the Kumara are the eldest. They're so high that they don't want to create. The Agnishvata are a step below the Kumaras, and they are the ones who a little bit more directly bring the fire to man. But there is a third group, and the third group, in order to get it, you have to read between the lines when she writes, fashioners of the inner man. If we turn to H.P. Blavatsky's Secret Doctrine commentary, also published by Theosophical University Press, we can take a look to see what the inner man may well refer to. On page 54 of this edition, H.P. Blavatsky is discussing the Manasaputras. This is the question she was asked. But do not our minds receive their illuminations direct from the higher manas through the lower? And is not the former the pure emanation of divine ideation, the Manasaputras, which incarnated in men? They are, H.P. Blavatsky answers, individual Manasaputras, or the Kumaras, are the direct radiations of the divine ideation, individual in the sense of later differentiation, owing to numberless incarnations. In some, they are the collective aggregation of that ideation, become on our plane, or from our point of view, Mahat, as the Dhyani Chohans are in their aggregate the word or logos in the formation of the word. So here we have the placement of the Manasaputras, and we realize that their placement is at the bottom of the Agnishvata, directly above, and even higher, the Kumaras. So we really have a threefold layer going on here in the Secret Doctrine. We have the Kumaras at the top, we have the Agnishvata below, and then we have the Manasaputras. Manasaputras being the sons of mind. They're the sons of mind because the Agnishvata are the fire that light up the mind. Now we want to understand the placement of these three in relation to the mundane egg. And to do that, we need to turn to the second volume of the Secret Doctrine, and we'll take a look at page 241 in the second volume. Here, H.P. Blavatsky is discussing the highest four layers of the mundane egg, and this is what she writes. Thus, though the seventh principle reaches man through all the phases of being, pure as an indiscrete element and an impersonal unity, it passes through, the Kabbalah teaches, from the central spiritual sun and group the second, the polar sun, which two radiate on man as Atman. Group 3, the equatorial sun, cement the Buddhi Atman and the higher attributes of Manas, while group 4, the spirit of our visible sun, endows him with his Manas and its vehicle, the Kama Rupa, or body of passions and desires, the two elements of Ahamkara, which develop individualized consciousness, the personal ego. Underneath this, she has the spirit of the earth, in its triple unity that builds the physical body, attracting to it the spirits of life, and forming his linga sharira. This is how she lays out the mundane egg in its sevenfold nature in the second volume on page 241 of the Secret Doctrine. If we're going to take these categories and we're going to relate them to the Kumara, we're going to relate them to the Agnishvata, if we're going to relate them to the Manasputra, then the Kumaras correspond to the seventh layer of the mundane egg. They correspond in some way to the central spiritual sun. The Agnishvata, in some way, correspond to the sixth layer of the mundane egg, to the polar sun. The Manasaputras, in some way, correspond to the fifth layer of the mundane egg as the equatorial sun. Then we arrive at the Dhyani Buddhas in the fourth layer of the mundane egg, at the heart of a solar sun, and beneath them, beneath these Dhyani Buddhas, are the various entities working through the planetary bodies within a solar system. Now, these entities working through the planetary bodies in a solar system are often referred to as Dhyani Choans. However, H.P. Blavatsky, also in the Secret Doctrine, refers to the three highest layers as Dhyani Choans. And that's because she realizes that these higher entities work through the planetary bodies as they descend in their evolutionary cycles. So, once again, we have now clarified where the Kumaras, where the Agnishvatas, and where the Manasaputras fit in to these various stages of the sevenfold mundane egg. So let's go a little further and let's turn to the next sloka and see what that has to say on page 98. Learn what we, who descend from the primordial seven, we who are born from the primordial flame, have learned from our Father. So there's a lot in here. The primordial seven, the primordial flame, and our Father. Well, the primordial flame is the central spiritual sun. It's the seventh layer of the mundane egg. The primordial seven, in one sense, can be seen as the seven layers emanating out of the primordial flame in the mundane egg. Our Father here is a reference to Oyehuhu, who is the primordial flame in the seventh layer of the mundane egg. That sloka is clear. Let's see what H.P. Blavatsky says further about it. The distinction between the primordial and the subsequent seven builders is this. The former, meaning the primordial, are the ray and direct emanation of the first sacred four, the Tatatras, that is, the eternally self-existent one. Eternal in essence, note well, not in manifestation, and distinct from the universal one. So the primordial is from the four. That means the primordial flame is a combination of the threefold great breath, the first logos, the second logos, the third logos, and the seventh layer of Paramatman being tinctured by that third logos. And then she continues. Latent during Pralaya and active during Manvantara, the primordial proceed from Father Mother. So these primordial beings are proceeding from Father Mother. Now Father Mother is Oyahu, as shown earlier. So Oyahu is generating all these beings within its own substance as Swabhava. She continues, whereas the other manifested quaternary and the seven proceed from the mother alone. So what is this other manifested quaternary? Well, the other manifested quaternary is a lower quaternary, and it begins with the seventh layer of the mundane egg, Paramatman. So let's look at this second quaternary. Paramatman is the seventh layer of the mundane egg. Adibhuti is the sixth layer of the mundane egg. Mahat as the fifth layer of the mundane egg. And Kamarupa, the solar suns, in the fourth layer of the mundane egg. Now the 7 proceed from the mother alone. What she's referring to here is that it's the mother in an aspect in the 7th layer of the mundane egg who is a deity. A deity can be spoken of in many ways, and she is in the Secret Doctrine. A deity can be a reference to the lower aspect of Paramatman in the 7th layer of the mundane egg. But a deity can also be a reference to the cosmic space, cosmic spelled with a small c, overshadowing the solar sun, and therefore in the 5th and the 4th layers of the mundane egg. The 7 in this particular case referring to the planetary bodies in the solar system. She continues, "It is the latter who is the Immaculate Virgin Mother, who is overshadowed, not impregnated, by the universal mystery, when she emerges from her state of laya or undifferentiated condition." That is, the mother, as the lower part of the 7th layer of Paramatman, is coming from the universal mystery. And the universal mystery is how the 3rd logos is the central point, tinctures the head of Paramatman in the 7th layer of the mundane egg as Oheihu. In the last paragraph there, she writes, "The first primordial are the highest beings on the scale of existence." And this is a reference to the Kumaras, not to the Agnishvata, not to the Manasaputras. They are the archangels of Christianity, those who refuse, as Michael did in the latter system, and as did the eldest mind-born sons of Brahma, to create, or rather to multiply. Let's go ahead and close off with the 3rd sloka in the stanza and see what it says. "From the effulgency of light, the ray of the ever-darkness, sprung in space, the reawakened energies, Dhyani Chohans." So here we have the effulgency of light. This is the 3rd logos, the central point. It's a ray of the ever-darkness moving through the dull black ground. It springs in space as reawakened energies. She uses the word Dhyani Chohans. Now in this case, 2 things can be referenced, which we've already alluded to. 1, Dhyani Chohans can in fact mean the various beings in the 7th, the 6th, and the 5th layers of the mundane egg. But Dhyani Chohans can also refer to the various entities overlooking the various planetary chains. And this is why we pointed out above that a deity can either refer to an aspect of the 7th layer of the mundane egg, but it can also refer to the great space in which the solar system is bathed and which overshadows and works through the various planetary chains. The Secret Doctrine, if anything, is consistent. Let's continue. The 1 from the egg, the 6 and the 5, then the 3, the 1, the 4, the 1, the 5. The twice 7, the sum total. And these are the essences, the flames, the elements, the builders, the numbers, the arupa, and the force or divine man, the sum total. This is all very complicated, and it's impossible to explain all of this here. But we want to allude to a few things in regard to this passage so that the listener on this channel can understand a more technical way of looking at symbolism in the Secret Doctrine. She writes, "This relates to the sacred science of the numerals, so sacred indeed and so important in the study of occultism that the subject can hardly be skimmed even in such a large work as at the present. It is on the hierarchies and correct numbers of these beings invisible to us, except upon very rare occasions, that the mystery of the whole universe is built." And this is absolutely true, but let's try to dive into it. In the next sentence, in that same passage, Blavatsky writes, "The Kumaras, for instance, are called the 4, though in really 7 in number. The Kumaras are the 4 because they're in the 7th layer of the mundane egg. So they're called the 4. The first logos, the second logos, the third logos, the Kumaras." And let's continue. She then goes on to talk about Brahma Brahma, of course, is pretty much the same as Mahat, is the third logos. She's talking about Brahma in relationship to the Kumaras. And then she continues on to the very bottom. And at the very bottom is the key, where you have to read between the lines. While this concept of the 1, 0, and the 6, 5 is very complicated, it does possess the key. In the last paragraph on page 89 there, it says, the 1 from the egg, the 6 and the 5, give the number 1065, the value of the firstborn, who answers to the numbers of 7 and 14 and 21 respectively. The key is the fact that the 1 is from the egg. So when we're looking at two numbers together, we have the first number and we have the second number. The second number is being derived from the first number. So now we can understand the symbolism of the symbol pi, 31415. Let's turn the page to understand that. She writes on page 90, the 3, the 1, the 4, the 1, the 5 in their totality, twice 7 represent 31415, the numerical hierarchy of the Dhyani Chohans of various orders and of the inner or circumscribed world. When placed on the boundary of the great circle of Pasnat, called also the Dhyani Pasa, the rope of the angels, the rope that hedges off the phenomenal form, the noumenal cosmos, not falling within the range of our present objective consciousness. Let's go ahead and understand this. So we now have the 3, the 1, the 4, the 1, and the 5. We know that the second number comes from the first number, because remember on the previous page, she said the 1's from the egg. So here we have 3, 1. So the 1 is from the egg. The 1 is from the egg, 1, 0. So the 3 is from the 1. The 4 is from the 1. And then the 5 is a uniting symbol, which we'll explain in a moment. So what are the 3? The 3 is the great breath, the first, the second, and the third logos. What is 1? 3 in the 1. So we go back. The 1 from the egg. The 3 from the 1. So in this case, we have the Immaculate White Disk. So the great breath comes from the Immaculate White Disk. The 3 are from the 1. Perfectly clear. Next, 4 from the 1. Okay, so we get 4 things from the 1. So what is the 1 in this case? The 1 in this case is Paramatman, the 7th layer of the mundane egg. What are the 4 things that we create? The 7th layer, the 6th layer, the 5th layer, and the 4th layer. Paramatman, Adibhuti, Mahat, Kama. So the 4 from the 1. So we have 2 stages. We have a division. We got the Immaculate White Disk as this great sphere of light. And then we have Paramatman, the great central sun, as this great sphere of light. Now 5 is the most difficult, but Gottfried de Purucker, in his explanation on the pentacle, shows that the introductory part of that word pend means to hang. To hang as on a pendant. So what we actually have here is we have the 3 logoi as the source of origin. We then have the 4 higher layers of the mundane egg hanging from the 3 highest. And so we have a grouping of 7. Now what H.P. Blavatsky has not brought into the conversation here yet is the lowest 3 layers of the mundane egg, which involve the various planetary chains. We have the highest 3 logoi, and we have the highest 4 layers of the mundane egg in this passage. And that's what 31415 means. This is why she says that these are the various Dhyani Chohans of various orders. Because we have Dhyani Chohans in the 7th layer of the mundane egg who are descending and taking embodiment in the various planetary chains. We have Dhyani Chohans in the 6th layer of the mundane egg who are embodying in the various planetary chains. And whether they're in the planetary chains or whether they're actually in the higher stages of the mundane egg, they can be referred to as Dhyani Chohans. Now there's a ring Pasnat, rope of the angels. that separates the phenomenal from the noumenal cosmos. And she uses the word cosmos here with a K. So we know that the mundane egg, the 7 layers of the mundane egg, and the Dhyani Choans in the 7th, 6th, 5th, and 4th layers are being roped off or separated from the 3 logoi. And that's because the central point tinctures the highest head in Paramatman of the Kumaras and then retreats. So there is a boundary line here. And H.P. Blavatsky is drawing a boundary line between the top 3 and the lower 7. And she goes on. Mathematically, they represent the well-known calculation, namely that the ratio of the diameter to the circumference of a circle is 1 to 31415, or the value of pi. By the time we get over the next page, she's now introduced something else very interesting. We can see it all in reverse. And if you look at page 91, we see the following. Second paragraph. Thus, while in the metaphysical world, the circle with the one central point in it has no number, the immaculate disk, the point there is potential, and is called anupadaka, parentless and numberless, it can fall under no calculation. In the manifested world, the mundane egg or circle is circumscribed within the groups called the line, the triangle, the pentacle, the second line, and the circle, or 1, 3, 5, 1, 4. And when the point having generated a line thus becomes a diameter, which stands for the androgynous logos, then the figure becomes 3, 1, 4, 1, 5. So we can reverse the number. And we look at 1, 3, 5, 1, 4. Things become much clearer when we reverse it. So go back to the earlier page. The 1 from the egg, 1065. The 1 is from the egg. So if we have 1, 3, the 1 is from the 3. So what does this mean? Well, the 1 is the central point. The point that she's just mentioned a moment ago, the central point in the immaculate disk as the boundless circle. So 1 is, right? 1 is from the 3. So the 1 is different now. The 1 is the central point. The 1 is the third logos. The 1 is the head of the great breath. The tinctures Paramatman is the 7th layer of the mundane egg. Then she is the 5. 5, penned, hanging, pentacle. So you have the great breath. You have the third logos. Hanging from it is the 1, 4. So the 1 is from the 4. So who is the 1 in this case? And who is the 4 in this case? So if we have 4, we have the 7th layer, 6th layer, 5th layer, 4th layer. So we have the 4. Now we need the 1. What is the 1? The 1 is our solar sun. So here H.P. Blavatsky has just shown us the 3, from it hanging the 4. The 1 is the central point, is the third logos, and its reflection in our solar sun. This is a symbolism here. Let us show how that works in her Secret Doctrine commentary. Now, the Secret Doctrine commentary, for the most part, ignores the great central sun, and it actually prefers to look at the cosmos from a sevenfold perspective. She basically embeds the first, second, and the third logos into the highest layer of Paramatman. But when she's looking at the first stanza, she does open up the discussion a little bit so that we can see clearly what she really meant. And let's take a look. If we take a look at her commentary on page 14, let's see how she discusses Mahat, the third logos. She writes, Brahma, the male, is born, and that Brahma is in reality the second logos or even the third, according to the enumeration adopted. For a certainty, he is not the first or highest, the point which is everywhere and nowhere. Mahat, in the esoteric interpretations, is in reality the third logos or the synthesis of the 7 creative rays, the 7 logoi. Out of the 7 so-called creations, Mahat is the third, for it is the universal and intelligent soul, divine ideation, combining the ideal plans and prototypes of all things in the manifested objective as well as subjective world. It's objective and subjective both, because Mahat, as a third logos, is ruling the arupa forms in the 7th, 6th, 5th layer of the mundane egg, and in the objective, because he's ruling over the 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st layers in the mundane egg. So we have Mahat emphasized in her commentary on the Secret Doctrine, not the great central sun. The central sun is looked over. It's a veil. It's a blind. It's left blank for the most part in so much of theosophical literature. But what does she focus on? Well, if you turn to page 24, we're examining the next stanzas here. In the second part of the Secret Doctrine commentary, this is what she writes. Question: in what relation does the sun, the highest form of fire we can recognize, stand to fire as you have explained it? She replies, the sun, as in our plane, is not even solar fire. The sun we see gives nothing of itself because it is a reflection. A bundle of electromagnetic forces, one of the countless milliards of knots of Foad. Foad is called the thread of primeval light, the ball of thread of Ariadne, indeed in the labyrinth of chaotic matter. This thread runs through the 7 planes, tying itself into knot. So the sun is a reflection. Now, H.P. Blavatsky can discuss the sun as a reflection in 2 ways. She can discuss it as a reflection of Paramatman, the great central sun. She does that more often in Isis Unveiled. But here, H.P. Blavatsky is discussing the solar sun as a reflection of the great central point. 1-3, 5, 1-4. 1-3, the central point from the great breath. 1-4, the solar sun, underneath, hanging on a thread through the pentacle, the number 5. She continues on that page, on page 91. When the son separates from the mother, he becomes the father. In this case, the son is the child. So when the son separates from the mother, he becomes the father. The son is going to separate from the mother, and he's going to become the father. The third logos is the central point. The central point is going to tincture the 7th layer of the mundane egg. When the central point is the third logos, he's the sun, S-O-N. He's the son of the immaculate white disk. When he separates from the mother, in this case, he's separating from the mother. The sun is separating from the second logos. He's breaking out from the dull black ground. He's freeing himself. He's now obscuring her. He's on his own. He shines his own light. He becomes an individual. Now he becomes the father. Well, the father is the 7th layer of the mundane egg. So here we have the sun, the third logos, breaking free from the second logos, the mother, becoming the father, the 7th layer of the mundane egg. She continues, the diameter standing for nature or the feminine principle. Therefore it is said, in the world of being, the one point fructifies the line, the virgin matrix of cosmos, the zero-shaped egg, cosmos with a K, so we're dealing with a 10-fold system, and mula prakriti, and the Immaculate Mother gives birth to the form that combines all forms. So we have the Immaculate Mother as the lower part now of the 7th and the 6th layers of the mundane egg. And it is in this 6th layer that we find such things as Adibhuti, as Sophia, Adibhuti. These are giving to life the forms that we know in the lowest 6 layers of the mundane egg. This is the universal oversoul that was discussed much earlier in the first stanza. She writes, this gives the keynote to all the later divine sons from immaculate mothers. Finally, on page 92, she talks about some of these various Dhyani Chohans. We won't go into them more than just reading, so we see the complexity of all of this. The Devas, Pitris, Rishas, the Suras and the Asuras, the Daityas and Adityas, the Danavas and Gandharvas have all their synonyms in our secret doctrine, as well as in the Kabbalah and the Hebrew angelology, but it is useless to give their ancient names, as it would only create more confusion. All right, there's a lot to think about here. It's a fantastic stanza. The complexity of this stanza is much deeper and far more profound than the first three stanzas. I hope you enjoyed tonight. I certainly have enjoyed exploring stanza 4. We will continue another time. Thank you very much.